Ed John is the Executive Manager of Stewardship at the Australian Council of Superannuation Investors, and he advises some of Australia's biggest super funds about governance and the way they vote their shares. And he joins me now from Melbourne. Ed, many thanks for your time. Is it right that the Qantas board has stripped Alan Joyce of $9.25 million worth of bonuses?
Well, I think, Ross, it's a very clear signal on accountability. There were huge investor concerns last year circling the AGM. That vote, the no vote on remuneration and executive pay at last year's AGM was one of the highest ever recorded in corporate Australia. So you'd see this today's announcement on the cancellation of bonuses as a pretty appropriate response to that investor concern.
So when you talk about investor concern, just explain where those concerns were coming from and just what were the most significant of those concerns. Quite clearly the bonuses were there. Was there anything about the governance, the stewardship of the airline?
Well, I think that the two very much connect, Ross. And in your introduction, I think you highlighted that fact that confidence in the brand was dropping, the customer outcomes and the performance of the company more broadly was hit quite significantly, and shareholders were obviously impacted in that process. So those factors being recognised and obviously appropriate accountability coming through these pay reductions is definitely connected to that impact.
Well, your organisation puts out each year an annual survey of the highest paid executives in Australia. Had Alan Joyce not had this bonus stripped away from him, he would have been the 5th highest paid executive in Australia. Just give me some relativity in terms of the performance of the airline versus that level of remuneration.
Well, hard to judge in the Australian market because obviously Qantas's largest competitor is a private equity-owned carrier in Virgin. So hard to compare on those numbers, but certainly we are talking, being in the top 10 of that list, and Alan Joyce is featured in the top 10 of that list in many instances. One way to put it, I think, today's decision in context is it's probably one of the highest ever clawbacks of CEO pay we've ever seen, and it compares to some of the decisions made by the bank boards, for instance, at the time of the Royal Commission. So that the 9 million figure is quite significant if we think of that history of boards stepping in and cancelling bonuses.
But the one thing that I observe is just increasing, shall I say, agitation by big superannuation funds, and particularly by many of the industry super funds, to be fair, about what's taking place inside company boardrooms, about the level of remuneration, about the practices of governance, that right now they're highly aware and prepared to act when they see something they're not satisfied with.
I think the reason for that, and you see this with superannuation funds and you also, many asset managers, I think there is a concern where outcomes are poor and performance is poor. That flows on to millions of Australians. So if there's poor corporate performance, if companies miss their targets, it actually has a significant impact on those retirees. And that's the point where if you see poor performance yet very large bonuses being paid, and that clear gap, that investors, I guess, are more frequently voting no. And again, last year, I think that figure where the no vote at the Qantas Super AGM, I think, was about 80% of all shareholders. That was mums and dads. That was likely many asset managers and super funds voicing that concern because the numbers were large, but performance was poor.
I'll tell you what, Ed, it's going to be fascinating because this will not end here. There is no doubt about it. Ed John from the Australian Council of Superannuation Investors, many thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Ross.